Hi, good afternoon, good morning. Guys, thanks for joining us. This is the first episode of our technology webinars for 2021. And as part of a request from some of our clients and from our network partners, we decided to put these technology webinars together because we have been getting a lot of questions as to how our clients or prospects can bring their digital marketing to the next level, and how they can use technology to measure return on investment on their digital marketing activities. So to start off, just to set the tone of this session, we will be talking about different ways, 12 different ways that we can use technology in digital marketing to affect our business goals in 2021. We have a couple of network partners joining us from Asia, from Africa, from the US. So we will be recording this session for those who are not able to make it because of the time zone difference. Also, it's New Year's Eve in Asia. It's the Chinese New Year's Eve in Asia. So we expect that some of our network partners in China and Hong Kong will not be able to join us. So we will be recording this session. So in case you miss anything, we will be circulating the recording of this session later on. If you cannot hear me for any reason, or if you have any questions, just send them across on the chat. But once again, to set the tone of this webinar, we will be talking about the 12 ways we can use technology in digital marketing to affect business goals and to push, whether it's for awareness or return on investments on your digital marketing. For those who've been able to join us as of now, I would request you to just start off by taking this survey. I'm going to share the survey link on the chat. I hope that is possible to share the survey link on the chat. I'm not sure if it's possible actually. Yes. I will send this across on the chat. Just take the survey. And what we want to know from you is, what are some of the difficulties you're having with your digital marketing measurement? What are some of the items that you would want to be able to measure using your digital marketing or using the technology options that we will be talking about today? Some of the top options that we have here is some people have told us that they would like to be able to use technology to engage their clients, engage their partners or business stakeholders, or to use technology to measure your social media return on investment, to use technology for faster customer service or customer engagement, to use technology to create a virtual target audience or better segment your personas, use technology for multi-level or multiple stakeholder post-approvals. Point 6 is use technology to ensure that your postings are going live on time, or even to be able to determine what the right time to publish your content is. Point 7 is using technology to measure your brand's share of voice, your digital share of voice, whether this is for your brand or for your competition. Point 8 is to use technology to identify a reputation crisis or a PR crisis. And then point 9 is using technology to reach multiple influencers or to manage your influencer campaigns. And point 10, we have using technology to find potential brand ambassadors or to develop products or determine where your product should be going, what kind of product your customers need or your target audiences want to see, what changes you should be making to your products for this reason. And then finally, using technology to assess and measure your competition, measure how much effort your competition is putting in marketing, how much of the target market they're capturing, what is their digital share of market or digital share of voice. So in the questionnaire, you will see each of these points and your response as to what you would like to use technology for, or some of the answers you would like to see technology in digital marketing give you, will dictate the topic of conversation in our next webinar. For those who are not signed up as a network partner with us, we have a webinar every 11th of every month at 11 a.m. GMT. That's 11th of every month at 11 a.m. GMT, which is essentially 11th March, the next webinar, 11th March, same time. So just to get into the details of this, some of the solutions that we present here have been guided by what we have seen from some of you. Some of our network partners are technology suppliers, and their softwares have helped us bring our proposals to the next level. Some of them, if you're on the client side, these are solutions that could work for you. And we will be getting into the details of this. And our first point that we found important to discuss, especially during COVID, is how you can use technology to engage your clients, your partners, and your business stakeholders. Now, I'm sure we're all familiar with or have been to at least one Zoom meeting or Google Hangout. We have seen the traditional virtual meetings, the traditional sessions that we can have online with our clients. And as you know, the new way of doing business, or as digital virtual meetings became more and more important, we have seen massive advancements in the kind of technology that is now available for virtual meetings. Some of the solutions we're seeing include virtual waiting rooms, where your attendees can chat with each other before they join the meeting. We have seen the ability to interact with audiences virtually through multi-participant webinars where your audiences are able to raise their hands. You might see the option to raise your hand at in your Zoom options where you can say something, or you can be given the access to audio to be able to say something. We've even seen more immersive solutions come up. And some of the examples we have here, for example, is a solution that allows you to have a virtual stage. So instead of having your living room background, this stage would be customized to represent what you would see in a conference, and your participants would be able to see something like that. So I'm just going to play this for a little bit. Obviously, we highlight these options not necessarily to promote the technology itself, but to show you what is possible when it comes to virtual events, virtual conferences, to kind of jog your mind and kind of inspire you on what is possible. We're seeing a lot of this coming up in March, especially when we have the International Women's Day, the World Water Day, the Mother's Day. A lot of companies will be activating this kind of events, virtual events. If you're not having any events coming up, do let us know. We can share with you some invitation to view some of the events that are happening, some of the coolest stuff, coming from some of our clients or our partners, especially in the United Nations kind of space. So how we help or how an agency can help you in this case is not just hosting the event, but also creating the virtual concept, which is the ambience of the meeting room, the ambience of the exhibition room, or even the ambience of the stage, and even integrating this with your existing software. If you're using something as simple as Zoom, you're probably familiar with the background options. And this is just the entry level when it comes to customizing your backgrounds, to even having 3D options, having augmented reality or virtual reality, to create whatever setting that you would want for your event. We would be able to provide you with tech support on the event day, to even generate attendees, generate leads for you to attend those events. Even prepare event materials, whether it's presentations or videos that should play during the event, and even stand by to support you technically should your Wi-Fi not be strong enough or something like that. A lot of the agencies similar to ours or the technology providers will also provide you with an event report. This enables you to see how many people attended the webinar, for example. What we have found with webinars is because they all happen, when we're all supposed to be working, even when you have a target of about 100 people, you might find that people come in rotation, and you want to know who came in, what time they left, how long did they stay, and what session of your webinar did you have the highest number of people, so that you optimize the next webinars in that way. We've also tested augmented reality on platforms like Facebook Live, and this is especially where the video itself or the recording itself is prepared for that purpose. We have found also pre-recorded events to be very useful, especially where we have time zone differences, where you have a speech. It is useful to make that recording if you're not absolutely certain of how to use a specific technology. You could have the recording and have it play during the webinar itself. For those who we have interacted with before this session, as I've mentioned prior, is that this session is not to promote our services, but to show you what are the options that are out there to inspire you. And I know we have a lot of marketing professionals in our network. We have a lot of agency network partners in our network. If you're familiar with some of the solutions that we're discussing here, bear with us. If you're wondering where this is going, there's no hidden agenda here. We want to start a conversation with professionals, with potential clients, and to have everyone kind of on the same page as to what is out there. Should you need our support, do reach out to us on our website. And if we are not able to help, we will definitely channel you to a technology supplier or a network partner that will be able to help you. Excuse me. To get into the next point or the next solution that technology is enabling for us now is the ability to measure return on investment. If you're working in the digital space, you've probably had this question a million times. How do I determine if this campaign was worth the investment? And as digital marketing professionals, we've been working out several different ways where we can assess a return on investment. It's especially difficult when in awareness campaigns or in campaigns that do not have a direct sales objective. However, we have been able to look at different ways that we're able to measure that. And we find that technology is very helpful in this space. Some of the ways we have been able to go about measuring return on investment, for example, is making sure that we understand what is the cost of a product, what is the price point that whatever we're marketing is worth. If you're if you're running a lead generation campaign, for example, in retail, that is really the starting point. How much is the cost of the product that is being sold? And from this, you can easily calculate how much was sold and subtract, you know, the cost of the investment, or even look at the cost per acquisition. If, for example, you sold 100 items and the investment was $1,000, then you know the cost per acquisition was about $10. Now, where we have an item that is difficult to quantify, like a webinar like this, when a client would say, what is the return on investment in such a webinar? The way we go about that is looking at how many people attended the webinar, how much attention did we have, how much reach did we have, and how much would we have invested on another platform to reach the same number of people. We have seen this recently, especially with awareness campaigns, where we have promoted a video to reach a couple of million people, and this was purely for awareness purposes. And then we're able to determine if we reached 1 million people in Nigeria, or we reached 1 million people in Japan, had we used traditional marketing, how much would we have spent to reach 1 million people? And this kind of gives us a vague kind of estimation or an educated guess on the return on investment. But ideally, for those who are in the marketing space, or for those who are in the digital marketing space, it's essential. It's extremely important to assess whether a return on investment is required, or a calculation of a return on investment is required from the beginning. And if this is required, then you must use softwares that are able to maybe even calculate for you the equivalency value had you used PR or had you used advertising, or even to be able to calculate for you how much was the reach, the impressions gotten, even in the case where there was no conversion. Again, it's a very dynamic conversation, and these are some of the ways that we've been able to use technology to do that. We have also found the value in installing tracking mechanisms for those who are familiar with the Facebook pixel, the LinkedIn pixel on the websites, using UTM links to measure how much traffic has ended up on a specific page. We have found softwares that are also able to calculate based on how many people landed on a specific page, what your estimated cost is. And even the Facebook Business Manager will, in some cases, be able to assess for you what is the cost per acquisition on specific campaigns. And then one of the best solutions, or one of the most used solutions, is being able to use technology to engage customers across platforms. We have seen a good advancement in technologies in this space, where rather than logging onto Facebook and Instagram and LinkedIn and responding to inquiries directly, we're able to plug the pages onto one software and have one inbox. This also allows us to identify customers who are reaching us across different channels. It also helps you to compare how much, what is your best performing channel, what channel is bringing you the highest amount of inquiries. I think this would be a basic functionality for most social media management softwares at this point. We have, for example, the team from Twiva, which is one of the newest softwares that we've seen out there. Their software enables interaction and response on inquiries, and many other softwares that will enable this. If you're finding yourself needing to log into 5 Instagram pages and 5 Twitter accounts, I think it's time to upgrade your community management softwares. Some of the things or some of the solutions we're able to offer as well is we understand that some of these softwares are extremely expensive. And what we advise is if the reason you're not using a software is because of the cost of those softwares, the reason why you're logging into 5 different social media accounts and switching from one Twitter account to another is because of the cost of the software, do reach out to us. We offer software sharing solutions where you are able to access just the elements that you need of specific softwares. Obviously, the risks of logging in and out of software, of accounts are many. We have found that, for example, if you have multiple community managers who log into Twitter, log in and log out, they would at some point get locked out of the account, and then you need to go through a process of verifying your identity and all of that. We have seen cases where people would maybe reply to the wrong account or, mix clients. We have seen cases where you have multiple people perhaps replying at the same time, and a person gets 2 responses. So consolidating this into one platform and giving administrative access to your different community managers is very important. One of the other things we've seen is, for example, on Instagram, if you have people logging in onto more than one person logging into an Instagram account, it's not possible to determine who responded to what. And this makes the process of training your team very difficult. If you have a response that was not up to standard, you have to rely on people admitting that this response came from them, and that can make it very difficult. So having a software and assigning different levels of access permissions gives you an idea of who responded, and even makes it possible for you to train your team further, allows you to give access to the software itself, to your agency or to your community managers, and even have a one spot where you can limit access if that is needed. We've also found the value of standardizing responses. Whenever we have a new client, for example, we go through a process of creating frequently asked questions and a standard response to every question, and providing translations to those responses. And a lot of softwares will allow you to save those responses so that at the time of response, you just select the fitting response, and this reduces your response time immensely. It also prevents typos on responses, and it also ensures that you can also measure what responses you're using the most frequently, which essentially should be guiding your content creation. If you find that most people are asking about the price or the location, they should be guiding your content creation to match that to what people are asking. The other solution that we have found, and I think this one is perhaps the most recent development in social media softwares, is the ability to create virtual audiences or create virtual personas. And this is perhaps a continuation from the previous slide. So for example, if you have Alan or Jeremy responding on your inquiries, and you find that this specific inquiry is coming from a certain demographic, some of the softwares enable you to create an audience based on who is engaging with you. So you could mirror Jeremy or you could mirror Alan and categorize everyone who fits his persona into an audience category. And if you have gone through a process of audience segmentation and creating personas, ideally what we do is when you're speaking to your customers on social media, there is a temptation to be very general, to create posts that are very very general, all encompassing. And what happens to in that case is that you're speaking to everyone, which is essentially you're not speaking to anyone in particular. Now, what we have found to be most useful is identifying who are the most relevant people or the most relevant persons, and using their profile to create a persona. For example, we might find that we're getting a lot of engagement from males who are 18 to 24. They're based in the United States. Then we can categorize that in a persona, Andrew, and by looking at their profiles, we're able to identify what are their interests, what are their what kind of entertainment, what kind of pages are they following, and then creating a segment from that. So rather than creating content that is targeted to a mass audience, we're creating an audience, we're creating content that is targeted to Andrew, or that Andrew would respond to. And then Andrew covers maybe 20 or 30% of our target audience. And then, you know, doing that 2 or 3 times, we're able to cover almost 80 or 90% of our target audience. And the content then reflects who you're talking to, and it's relatable to a very specific person. Now, this can be a very rigorous process if you're doing it manually, going through every single profile of every single person who sends you a direct message or comments on your content. But technology has now enabled us to assign inquiries where, if we have an inquiry from Alan, we could tag him as fitting the same persona as Andrew. If we have an inquiry from Jeremy, we could tag him as fitting the same persona as Susan. And essentially, we're building a target audience as we go along. And we're even able to measure how many people in our target audience fit that persona, and even use these personas or use these audiences in advertising targeting. I would challenge you to look at your posts, try to determine who your posts are written for, try to identify who your which target audience you're speaking to, give them names. This enables you to look at them as persons rather than groups, and create content that is fitting of them. Even when you're targeting your advertising, categorize your audiences, give them names, and treat them as if they are people you know, and think of other Andrews, what would they respond to, and create content that they would respond to. What we have seen as a long-term result of that is that we engage more people that are fitting our target audience. You start to see comments like, oh my gosh, this is me, or this reminds me of myself, or this reminds me of my mom, because then the content is very very personal. Moving on to the other solutions that we're seeing technology provide for us is multiple level or multiple stakeholders post approvals. Now, if you're still sending an Excel or Word document to your clients, I think this is really useful to you. If your agency is sending you Word documents for post approvals, I think you need to share this specific slide with them. We are ourselves in the process of developing a post approvals software, but for the time being, we have found solutions that are not necessarily created for post approvals, but we have customized them for that purpose. And what we see now is the ability to add different people on a dashboard, different clients, different approval managers on a dashboard, tag that content to them, enable them to get an email notification when it's time for them to approve a post. And also you get an email notification back when they have approved that content. This also enables your clients to have a one-stop spot where they can see all the content that you have sent them before, and they can compare what's the difference between this post and what you did last March, for example. And also when there are multiple levels of approval inside an organization, instead of sending Word documents, attachments, then all you need is a link to the specific posts. We have found that this is enabling faster approvals. It also means that you do not always need to send the whole month's calendar to the client. The client does not need to approve all the content in one sitting. As you can see on this example from Monday.com, for example, they have the post itself. They can see the publish date, and they can come in and approve the post maybe 5 or 10 days before the publish date. They don't have to reach out to you to determine if the post has been published. They don't need to go to the page itself. The status is automatically changed. And this is just one of the solutions. If you're using this, perhaps you're using Monday.com for something else. This is also just an example of, being able to use Monday.com for post approvals. We will be having a session to discuss this software further as well, perhaps in April or May, where we will have some of these speakers from these platforms come in and even show you advanced features. If you're not already using such a software, obviously this is one of the examples. There are many more. If you're using something else, you can share with us those names as well. We would be happy to test them out. And if the cost of the software is the reason why you're not using it, feel free to reach out to us, and we can always discuss with you software sharing solutions that we are offering to our network partners. And this is specifically for agencies. I believe many of you are already familiar with using technology to ensure that your posts go out on time. This is where many of the platforms, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, they have enabled a post scheduling on the platform itself. This is one of the solutions I think the platform providers or the channels themselves are ensuring these inbuilt capabilities. So using Facebook Studio, you're able to schedule the posts yourselves going onto Facebook and Instagram. Using TweetDeck, you're able to schedule posts going out to Twitter. And if you're looking to publish on other platforms like Pinterest or LinkedIn that perhaps do not have very sophisticated scheduling options, then there are softwares that enable you to do that. Now, again, if you find yourself needing to set a reminder to publish content, you need to upgrade your technology solutions or your technology packages. One of the things we found to be very valuable with this is, especially when we're working with cross market marketing, is ensuring that posts go live at the right time. Just because a post needs to go live at 4:30 p.m. In one country, that could be a different time altogether. That could be late in the night in another country. You don't want to wake up in the night to publish that. And the other option is also being able to differentiate that and say, I want this to go live at 4:30 p.m. in Nairobi and 4:30 p.m. in New York, which might be a couple of hours later. This is very important because as you will see with most softwares, you should be able to determine what is the most engaging time on most engaging days and ensure that your posts are scheduled for those times. Now, some softwares will allow you to select to allow the software to choose what time your post goes live. So if Monday at 9 a.m. is the most engaging time for you, rather than having to choose that post to go at 9 a.m., the software will determine what is the right time to push that live. Obviously, that is a bit more sophisticated. So this is just some of the options that I believe most of us are already up to date with. But we have also realized that some clients who are maybe managing the publishing themselves internally are not familiar with these softwares, or they have the perception or the assumption that these softwares are very expensive. This is not the case. Most publishing softwares are quite affordable, and there's a lot of them, and we're happy to share with you some of those names, or even enable sharing access on our existing softwares. Now, this is a more advanced option where we're using technology to measure your brand's share of voice. Most marketing professionals or branding professionals, you might already be familiar with share of market. This is essentially when you're looking at a specific target audience in a specific geography, how much of those target audiences have you been able to acquire as clients? Most market research companies will be able to do the market analysis and give you an answer to this. Now, the share of voice is perhaps the digital equivalent of that, where we say from a given space, how much conversation is your brand pulling? Now, we're able to assess this in a given country. For example, if we look at India, for example, or we look at Australia, how many people or how many times has your brand been mentioned online? Now, if you do a simple Google search, you might be able to find those links. But the trouble with that is it doesn't aggregate for you. It doesn't mention what is the search result, what is the total number. But this has gotten so advanced that if you put in your brand name on a software, your brand keyword, your hashtags, you should be able to determine how many people have mentioned your brand in the last 1 year, for example. Why this is important is because, how else do you determine that your marketing efforts are having the impact that you want? Obviously, you want to avoid a situation where you're the one talking about your brand, your market is not talking about your product. And being able to assess that, you're able to see how much conversation are you generating. Are people reacting to knowledge of your brand? Are people resharing? We've also used this to identify peaks in conversation. One of the best examples we have is obviously when COVID started off, we could see an increase in the volume of conversation about hand washing, social distancing, about COVID itself, about hygiene and sanitation. And we were able to determine how much that conversation was increasing. In March, in Africa alone, we had about 2 billion mentions of hand washing alone. That went up to about 5 billion mentions in the middle of March, and increased even further in the middle of May, where we could see the volume of conversation increasing. Now, when you see that and you're in the sanitation space, or you're in the water, health, hygiene space, you should also be able to, you should also see a reflection of the volume about your brand increasing. If you're providing wet wipes, or you're providing disinfectants, the volume of conversation should be increasing if you're reaching the right target audience, either proportionately or close. However, if the volume of conversation is not increasing, then perhaps you're not reaching the right people. Now, one of the things we were able to determine as well during COVID is when even the volume was going down, when we started to see the conversation about sanitation and hygiene normalize back to previous numbers. And this indicates for us when a target audience or the market is moving on to the next topic. You see people moving on to talking about the elections and talking about Black Lives Matter, and the volume of conversation about sanitation was then dropping. Now, if your client is launching a product that is relating to COVID, then you want to ensure that they don't miss that window, and they don't, the topic does not completely change, and they missed that opportunity to launch the product. So luckily we were able to advise one of our clients to launch a product at that time. And while they probably thought they could wait until April or May of 2021, the volume of conversation going down indicated for them that they should be launching a product before it's too late, before the world moves on to the next story. So this is just an indication of how share of voice is important. In some cases, we've also been, we also find that you might be underestimating how much share of voice your competition has. If you're, getting into digital marketing and you're thinking that all you need to do is maybe 10 posts per day and maybe invest $100 in promoting that content, you don't need influencer marketing. Getting an idea of how much share of voice your competition is getting also gives you an idea of how much catching up you need to do, whether it's increasing your volume of content or increasing your advertising budgets or investing in influencer marketing. We've also found this to be really important in identifying the waves or the peaks and drops in your industry. One of the research we did, for example, in the hospitality industry in the Middle East, this was a quite long term, over a period of 5 years. We were able to assess when was the conversation about hotel rooms, restaurants, dining out going up, and when was it going down. And this also enables you to determine when you should be investing in increasing your marketing budget or reducing them. One of the things, for example, we saw is that there was an assumption that in the summer, conversation about dining out increases. But what we realized that in the summer, most people might be busy with outdoor activities, and the conversation actually drops, which is the opposite of what we expect. So in that period, this is the time to encourage your client who is in outdoor activities to market more or to reach a specific target audience. And this also explains to you why results might be lower. If you find, for example, that your reach or your impressions have dropped in a specific month, it doesn't always mean that your targeting was wrong. It could also mean that your audience was offline. They were busy with other outdoor activities. One of the things we believe is rather than focusing so much on what other people are doing or what other brands are doing, ideally you should be looking at your market and your target audience. Are they talking about you? And is the volume of conversation that you're getting high enough to push your brand to where you want it? Obviously, there will always be a brand that is investing more in marketing. There will always be a brand that has a higher share of voice, but are you happy with the share of voice that your brand is getting? In some cases, you might even need to pull back if your internal systems are not equipped to handle very high amount of conversation or inquiries. You might realize that the conversation is too high, and you might want to scale back and slow things down a little bit. So that was a very extensive discussion or explanation of the digital share of voice. One of the things we found also useful in tracking that share of voice is even assessing how your campaign is performing, being able to track where your campaign is reaching certain peaks in reach, in engagements, in impressions. And this can also give you a very good picture early on whether what you thought would be a successful campaign is actually going to be a successful campaign. This enables you to maybe invest more, and in cases where you're not able to invest more, maybe even pull back and say, we're not getting the reaction we expected. Maybe we need to pull back and re-strategize, and maybe we need to try a different method. And this is just an indication of some of the things you're able to see, or some of the numbers you would be able to see. Now, obviously, as your share of voice increases, there are several factors that might be affecting that. Increase in share of voice could be positive. Increase in share of voice could also be an indication that there's a reputational crisis brewing. One of the most useful situations we found this share of voice to be very important is during live events, when people are attending an event, they're busy posting on social media, but your marketing team is busy serving or busy attending to people at the event, and they might sometimes not be watching the conversation that is happening on social media, or they might just be seeing the conversation that is tagged to you or has your hashtags. Now, in one very famous reputational situation, we had a live event, and during the live event, we were able to detect that people were complaining about the quality of lighting. This was a night event, which was a run, electric run. If you're familiar with the electric run, this is where we, for example, take a running track or a stadium, and we organize a 5K or a 10K that happens at night, and there's a lot of glowing lights, and in an effort to make running much more enjoyable or different. And in this specific situation, the events team was busy handing out water, making sure everyone was safe, and they did not realize that some people were complaining about the lighting quality being too low or some areas being quite dark. And we were able to pick this up on social media by even finding that perhaps the trending theme in an event like that, you expect the trending theme to be the 5K or the distance or the fun or the being together, but then the trending theme in this specific case was the lighting, or even some people might be complaining that they're waiting in line for too long, and real time, you're able to see that negative conversation and even address it on the spot, make some changes during the event itself, because a software would aggregate the volume for you. So you don't have to manually try to assess, is this a crisis situation? In that particular case, specifically, the client was able to respond to that. They were able to bring in a bit more lighting, and before the crisis became worse, before people started asking for a refund, or before people started boycotting the event, and then in that case the theme changes, where people are now the trending topic, instead of it being your event, it then changes to refund or something like that. So sentiment measuring softwares or even volume measuring softwares can even enable you to see when there's a spike in the conversation, and to determine, is that a spike that is positive or is it a spike that is negative? It can allow you to address negative conversations a negative sentiment immediately. It can even enable you to pull the plug on an event, which you might not be able to know if you were relying on your community manager counting the volume of mentions. So in the worst case scenario, you can stop the campaign or you can stop the event. In the case of the very famous case of the World Cup, I'm not sure if you guys are familiar with this. I think it was the World Cup in 2006, if I'm not very wrong, just around that time, when there was a negative conversation or a negative tweet from one of the football teams. I think it was the Dutch football team, and this brought in a terrible reputational crisis. And anyone who was planning to post something relating to that moment would then need to rethink if you really want that post to go live. And obviously, if you're using a scheduling software and your post is already scheduled to go live, you also need to know when it's time to take it down and not let it go live before it triggers even more negativity. Some of the other softwares we found to be quite useful at this time, or the technology we found to be quite useful at this time, is being able to identify who your influencers are. And some of these solutions might be a combination of several different softwares. For example, using a software that identifies trending themes and topics might also be able to identify who your top users are or which brands are mentioning you the most. And even using a community management software where you're able to respond to all your inquiries in one platform, you might also be able to determine who are your most influential users. We have also found specific softwares that focus on this. They're able to determine influence based on the number of followers, the amount of reach that certain accounts have, and you can select even influencers based on the demographic, based on the interest level, based on their country, their age, and all of that. We're even seeing softwares that enable you to mass message a set group of influencers. So if you find yourself looking for influencers on Instagram and sending direct messages to each and every one of them, you need to know that there are solutions now that ensure that you don't have to do that. You could select a specific demographic. You could send one message to 1,000 influencers. You could know when they have seen that message, and you can even know when they've published about it, when they've used that post, and you can track which influencer is reaching the highest number of people using the available softwares. And this also relates to assessing or selecting who your brand ambassadors should be. One of the things we've realized, for example, in the last 3 months, is that your influencers or your brand ambassadors could be the least expected. They might not even be people with a high number of following. They could have just 100 followers, but these are 100 followers in a very specific industry. These people engage with them, they respond actively, they know your influencer, and you can detect that based on the response that your potential ambassador is getting, and determine who you should be working with as your brand ambassadors. Obviously, using the same, you can also search for your brand ambassadors the same way that you would search for your brand in this case. You could also search for your brand ambassadors to determine is their name tied to positive sentiment? Is their name trending alongside matching themes and topics? And do they have picks in terms of, when their name comes up? If you're looking at collaborating with brands as well, you want to make sure that the brands are reaching the same demographic, they're getting a good amount of engagement, and that they're also aligned in terms of themes and topics that your brand is focusing on. And then in terms of product development or using technology for product development, I think some of these themes really interact with each other, or they're even, kind of meeting points between what these softwares can do. One of the examples that we have used in product development, for example, in the insurance industry, is where a client is entering a market. Maybe you have been marketing your products in the United States. You're thinking about marketing your products in Africa, but you're wondering, should you make product customizations? Should you localize your product? Now, some of the things we've been able to do, for example, is use softwares to assess, do people relate or understand your product in that specific market? You might have a product that is called, say, Omo, for example, which is a very famous laundry detergent. But then maybe in Japan, Omo is a surname. So if you're entering that market, do you want to compete with that? Or maybe Omo is an acronym for a very cool trend in South Korea. So if you're entering in that market, do you want to compete with that? Do you want to perhaps rename your product for that specific market? Or in one specific case, for example, a client was entering Egypt as a market for insurance, and they wanted to know what is the most the most requested or the most needed insurance product. And in this case, then a listening software can enable you to, for example, even if you enter the word insurance in a specific country, you would be able to tell most people talking about motor insurance, house insurance, travel insurance. And are they talking about it with regards to looking for insurance or feedback? In this specific case, we realized that the people were not necessarily looking for the product, but they were maybe complaining about the quality of service. Maybe they're saying my insurance provider does not respond to my tweets or does not respond to my email. Then if you're entering that market, you know that if you do respond to every single tweet or every single email, then you will be differentiating yourself from the existing competition. In the screenshot that we share here, for example, we look at an example of a product. Say you're launching an electric car and you want to determine, I'm entering Dubai as a market, and my car is, this is the name of my car. I want to know what I'm up against. And, entering the search electric car, you might realize you need to go up against Tesla, or maybe you might even be going up against another brand that has a hybrid option. This already indicates for you who your competition is and how much effort you should be putting in your marketing. What are some of the features that you need to enhance or that you need to specify in your marketing? We also had one situation, for example, where we had a product in Spain. This was a pizza brand, and they were getting into marketing the product in Spain. And when we did a search for their competition, their pizza competitors, we realized that one of the competitors was really talked about in terms of the fries that they give with every pizza order. So while maybe our client would have gotten in as, just marketing the pizza, they now knew that perhaps we need to, go for the fries as well, or perhaps we need to, not market the fries because we need to go up against this brand that has a very famous or very popular fries offering. So these are just some of the ways where product development becomes important. One of the, in our agency, for example, one of the ways we've used digital listening for product development is even putting out specific keywords that we know when ministries or companies are putting out a request for proposal, we have the words like request for proposal on a listening softwares, and we can tell which proposals are the most requested. And this allows us to shift our digital marketing solutions to align with the majority of the requests for proposals. Now, I think the listening softwares are maybe perhaps the most expensive softwares in this category. And as I mentioned a couple of times, if you're looking to do some kind of listening or benchmarking, we're able to even use our existing softwares to provide a report for you and pull the data from our existing softwares, or even provide you access on the softwares that we use, which is a software sharing option, or even to suggest for you software options that are within your budget from our suppliers. We have a few suppliers attending this call, and based on your budget point, we can then make introductions to enable you to find the softwares that are meeting the requirements that you have and meeting your budget as well. So in summary, just the solutions that we have looked can be categorized in different categories. This is just an example where we use softwares for listening to what your brand what is being said about your brand, to identify an impending reputational crisis, or to even assess what people are saying about your competition. Softwares to be used to engage, whether it's responding to inquiries, to identifying your response time, shortening your response time, creating or saving those frequently asked questions, responses, automating your responses, even segmenting your audiences into groups or personas. And then when it comes to activating, you might want to use softwares to activate your brands, whether it's events, webinars, influencer activations, automating your influencer activations, or even identifying when is the right time to activate your brand. Perhaps you're thinking about activating your brand during Ramadan or during Mother's Day, which is when every single brand is going to be activating, which means that your advertising, there's going to be a lot of competition for ads, which means your cost per action is going to go up. Perhaps you need an alternative on when is the next best time to activate my brand, and these listening softwares can enable you to determine that. And then finally is to monetize your brand, which is either generating leads through solutions like the Facebook Business Manager lead generating options, measuring your return on investments, and tracking what is your return on investment, and even monetizing your brand and saying, or your product, and saying, I'm selling my product at $5. If I look at another product that is selling at $10, do they have a higher share of voice? Do they have a lower share of voice? Is having a higher price point affecting their share of voice? And that can even determine if you should increase your prices. This brings us to the end of our presentation today. And I would request you to send in your questions. For those who have any questions. If you don't have any questions right now, you could also drop us an email at info@sparkpublicity.com. We will send you any kind of responses to those questions. We will also be providing a recording of this session on our website, where you can watch this, you can share with your clients, you can share with your prospects, you can share with your marketing team. If there's anything that you would have wanted to see more of as well, do let us know. And we will ensure that